I'm Joe Biggs with Infowars.com at the epicenter of the ISIS terror threat here in El Paso, Texas, on our southern borders, right across from Juarez, Mexico. Now, I'm going to give you a little recap of what's going on up until now with the ISIS threat, what we know, whether or not we know if it's a hoax or a false flag, or if it's a legitimate threat. But what we do know thus far is that Judicial Watch a few days ago came out with an article saying that they had intelligence reports saying that there was chatter about ISIS operating in Juarez. Now we know Juarez is a hotbed for gang violence, drug cartel activity. So, it makes sense that ISIS could fit in that area well. They both like to behead people and murder people like crazy. What we now know is that there have been 11 planes possibly hijacked out of an airport in Libya. They have been taken and they are missing at this point. So we don't know what's going on with that. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind. We are getting ready to come up on the 13th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, so it is kind of scary knowing that there could be possibly some planes missing as well. But one of the things that I spoke to the vice president of the Border Patrol Council a couple days ago, and what he said this time to me was pretty interesting. I know a lot of you guys have heard me mention his name, Stu Harris. He's done a lot of work for me and helped me out, giving me information about the border and the illegal immigration and things of that nature. And I said, hey, I was like, we've seen this article on Judicial Watch talking about possible car bombs coming in from Juarez. Is this a threat that you guys are taking seriously? And if so, do you have any information you could pass along to me? And this is the first time he's ever said this. He goes, that's something that I cannot comment on at this time. I thought that was pretty crazy, seeing how he's been very open with information thus far. But then a few minutes later, he texted me back and he goes, I'm actually talking to our media liaison for the Border Patrol right now about that. So he hasn't said anything back to me about that, but I felt that to be a little weird. Now we know that El Paso over the weekend closed down 2 of its major gates that they use to allow people in and off base. They made vehicles subject to go through random car searches. They bring out dogs. They look for stuff like that. They bring the mirrors under the vehicles. They definitely heighten their security up. Also, the commanding general of Fort Bliss was briefed about a possible ISIS threat coming from Juarez. So with all that added up, that is a pretty legitimate thing to consider as a threat. But then again, it could be a false flag being used to take our liberties away from us. But then again, if it is a real threat and something does happen, they can also use that to take our liberties away as well. We saw how fast that can happen in Ferguson, Missouri. But stay tuned. We're going to continue bringing you reports. But also, one last thing before we get out of here. I spoke to a lady who's lived here her entire life last night, and she has taken the threats to be very seriously. I've spoken to quite a few people that I knew living here a long time ago over the past few days, and most of them take this as a serious threat. But the mainstream media here in El Paso is saying it's all a hoax. There's nothing to worry about. Continue on with your daily routine. So we're going to get to the bottom of that stuff. We're going to continue bringing you updates about what's going on with this imminent ISIS terror threat here in El Paso, Texas. Stay tuned for more reports. Once again, I'm Joe Biggs with Infowars.com.